This video is continued from the previous. So the color red we're pretty familiar with this one, right? I mean, this is a kind of a common knowledge that red and can equal anger or passion. Studies show that red can actually have a physical effect that increases your blood pressure, your heart rate, and your respiration. Red cars get more tickets than any other cars, according to insurance agencies. That's why they charge you more for them. It's also a color of love, of blood, of, let's see what else we got in here. Revolution, socialism, power, masculinity, ambition, right? But it also, we see that stop sign and we know stop. Red orange has been studied to show that it makes people hungry. It does work. When I designed restaurants, we used those types of colors frequently. What happened to the image? There we go. We use those colors frequently to, in a restaurant because it stimulates appetite and causes people to eat more food, which, we could debate the ethics of that. But at the time, I didn't really think of it that way. I just thought of it as like the color. So when you look at this, what do you see? Because there's a lot of pareidolia going on here. And it's really interesting because, as we talked about, color is contingent upon context. So the context here is what you make of it. Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it neutral? I keep seeing a face, an eye there and an eye there, and then all kinds of things happening, kind of like where a nose should be, and maybe that's the mouth or that's the nose. Whoops, my cursor keeps jumping. Or that's the nose and that's the mouth. That kind of looks like a heart. That kind of looks like a pair of legs sideways, right? So you start to see all kinds of things in there. And so the fact that it's red obviously has an impact on how it makes you feel. Because red can be aggressive. So if you see this in a negative way, you can see this face as being aggressive. Or red symbolizes blood. You could see this as, skull, blood. This could be, one of those negative Rorschach tests. But if you see this as something positive, because, there's kind of a smile going on here, then red is love and passion, and that's how the color changes things. I love this building. Look at that. It's very red. Obviously, it's not just red, but, it has some green and some orange in there. But it's mostly shades, tints, and hues. They're all in the red family. And think about it. What does that do for this building? If the building were blue, it would not be as dynamic at all. It would not be as energetic. That red really puts energy into the building. Makes it feel like it's kind of spinning, maybe like it's in motion or it's moving. I see movement when I look at this, and I think the red helps do that. And of course, these little pops of green and black help keep it from being overwhelming. Blue. If you ask people what is their favorite color, more people say blue than any other shade. And blue can be, just neutral things like the sea, the sky. It can be things like peace, unity, tranquility, but it can also be iciness, depression. What are there in here are negative? Well, it might be about it, huh? Cleanliness is a positive or negative, depending on how you see that word, I guess, or neutral. And we previously looked at some of her work, but example of what a blue room does for your mood. Often we'll use blue in rooms where, like the bedroom or the bathroom, where we want people to relax, because blue is a very calming color. The wavelengths, right? So there's wavelengths for color, right? Or wavelengths that our eyes perceive as color. And they're different wavelengths. And red is a different wavelength than blue. And so biologically, those wavelengths have an impact on how our bodies feel. And that's why it's not really the color that does it, it's the wavelength that does it. And so when you begin to mix colors too, right? So this isn't just blue, it's primarily blue. But it, here it is with its complement. It begins to become a more complex message, right? So it's no longer just what do you feel when you look at this because it's blue, but how does blue in conjunction with the orange and the lines, the texture, how does that begin to impact the work? Now the glass on this is blue, but it also is mirroring the sky. And what would it be like to be inside a building? Because, this is probably offices or apartments. What would it be like to be inside a building where the glass is tinted blue so that the light coming into your space is always blue? For a living space where you want to feel calm, that might be really good. But for an office where you want to get work done, it might not be so good. People might fall asleep at work. And that's why we study this, why we have to take this into consideration, why we have to think about color, because it truly does have a psychological impact on what the spaces we're designing. Green is associated with wealth, nature, it's good luck. It can also mean envy in experience. During the Middle Ages, green was used to symbolize the devil, so that's why green is associated with evil still today. And you see green witches, and green is a color for Halloween. Some examples of green in motion. This is definitely a monochromatic color scheme. Green, when we talk about buildings, these apartments have green terraces on them. Within the living space. And that actually is it's really interesting if you ever want to design a building that has a green roof, what goes into it, because you have to be able to keep the plants alive. And you also, if it's grass, you have to be able to cut it. So those are the kinds of things that have to be taken into consideration when you're designing a building like this. But I've never seen a green building like this that I didn't think was really cool looking, because it's green. Green is the color of food. Green is actually the shade we see the most different nuances of. And it's because when we were living in the wild, you wanted to be able to differentiate between edible greens and non-edible greens. The human brain runs on complex carbohydrates, and greens are abundant in complex carbohydrates. So we wanted to know which ones were the most nutritious, so we can see all these different shades as a result. And then here we just, this painting is mixed with other colors. And so you see what begins to happen. You have your dominant color, but then you have your accent colors. And those accent colors then lend their psychology and their messaging to your work. So it isn't just a matter of picking colors necessarily. It's a matter of selecting the appropriate color harmony for your client. Yellow can be hope, sunlight, optimism, but it can also be cowardice. We use that term yellow-bellied. In Egypt, it's actually their sign of mourning. Ours is black, as we've talked about. Now, I thought this was kind of cool, so I threw this in here. Pencils are often yellow because they're associated with Chinese graphite, which apparently is high-quality graphite. And, again, in context, and the fact that this is very warm, this is very rich, warm, you automatically look at this and you think something good's happening. For all we know, maybe something good is not happening. Isn't that cool? I love the negative space of the sky that's created by this building, but it's hard to pull off yellow. They did a good job with that one. And so here, another one, right? So the context is subject to interpretation. Is this positive? Is it neutral? Is it negative? What does the yellow do to the work? Then we have purple. A lot of people like purple. Purple used to be associated with royalty, so for a very long time, purple has been a color that has been seen as desirable. But also, there are people that it's not a color that is necessarily friendly to people who like traditional designs. Color, because colors, can be overwhelming. It can be very dominant. But purple is actually the morning color in Thailand. Yet it was also the favorite color of Cleopatra from Egypt. We give the Purple Heart to soldiers who have been wounded. There's actually a term here that means an irrational fear of the color purple. That's pretty interesting. I did not know that existed. And you can see purples can be bluish and cool. Right, in context, this feels very cold. I feel like I'm standing outside on a winter's day in the snow, and I can feel the cold air blowing. I just thought this was beautiful monochromatic photo of the different shades and tints of the flower. Victorian homes were notoriously purple. And here's an example of a beautiful painted lady. They're so beautiful. I lived in San Francisco. Gosh, a while ago, and I'm trying to remember how long ago it was. And I just used to love to just walk around downtown, look at the houses. There are just all these beautiful Victorian homes there. Atlanta used to have a lot of Victorian homes, but unfortunately they were lost when Sherman came through Atlanta. Orange is a very controversial color. It can be energy, balance, enthusiasm. It can also be aggression, arrogance. It can be considered a gaudy color. Orange is less intense than red because it's calmed by the color yellow. So it's this mixture, right? So when you start to get in these secondary colors like teal, purple, and orange, they start to become calmer because they're a mixture of a warm color and a cool color. So it brings down the intensity of that primary shade. All the different oranges. I think it's beautiful. I love orange, but everybody's got their own preferences. More peach but peach is right is just white added into orange. And how lovely is that? Even though it's fallen apart, that orange says it's not over. This building is not going down. Oh, I just noticed this. There's a person looking out the window. Brown. Lovely shade of brown. Brown, like gray, isn't just one shade. It can be cool, it can be warm, it can lean towards one side or the other. So brown is associated with calmness, depth, richness, stability, but it can also mean dirtiness, heaviness, poverty. You can get brown by adding black to a color until it darkens it, or you can add complements together to get brown. And you get some really nice browns if you mix magentas and greens together. And I don't know why it is, but and obviously it depends on which magenta and which green, but they just tend to make some really beautiful, rich, chocolatey browns. Brown can also stimulate the appetite. This is sepia toned photo. Bust of Nefertiti in different shades of brown. That was interesting how they did the gradation. And of course, brown is a very, very common color in residential design because wood. And then pink. Pink is it looks like my slide's off a little bit. Sorry about that. Pink is a color that's usually associated with spring, gratitude, femininity. It tends to be associated with girls, and though it wasn't always so. It used to originally be associated with boys, and then it got switched. Okay, I'm going to stop this here and continue in the next video.